in an attempt to distract people from the fact that Donald Trump's tariff policy is incredibly incoherent and that he basically both folded to China and still potentially created inflation and potentially some form of stagflation, because we will see what the implications of having who knows how many businesses go out of business because of this tariff lodged on China. But all of that, in an attempt to distract from that conversation, Trump signs an EO, an executive order, which has, as far as anybody can tell, no force,
no enforcement. You would need this to be ironed out in the legislature, and he's just not doing it. It's a glorified press release, which is what a lot of these are.
No, because it means everybody's going to wonder what's going to happen for 30 days. And certainly by the time we get to 30 days, something different will be going on and we'll all forget it. Hey, TikTok ban anybody? Who's thinking about that? Nobody, right? The weave. Here's Donald Trump.
So first, I'm directing the U.S. trade representatives and Department of Commerce to begin investigations into foreign nations that extort drug companies by blocking their products unless they accept bottom line and very low dollar amounts for their product, unfairly shifting the cost burden onto American patients. And we'll be taking a look at that very strongly. The biggest thing we're going to do is we're going to tell those countries, like those represented by the European Union, that, that game is up. I'm sorry. And if they want to get cute, then they don't have to sell cars into the United States anymore. It's a very big subject. And they won't get cute, because I'll defend the drug companies from that standpoint. They were, first time.
Okay, so as far as I can tell, what he's saying is that price controls in Europe end up costing American
pharmaceutical companies
or costing American consumers of pharmaceuticals more money, because the price controls in Europe we end up subsidizing the European use of drugs. Now, there's another way of dealing with this. Richard Nixon was the first president, I think, at least in peacetime, to impose price controls. Trump could do that here. But instead, what he's saying is we want Europe to drop their price controls.
Yep.
And if they don't, you can't buy a Beamer.
Because doesn't that make us look kind of bad? Doesn't it make us look bad? That
you want a Fiat?
Yeah.
Sorry.
If you go over the border, you can get the same drug in Canada for maybe like hundreds of percentage points less. Maybe it's because they can still make a profit in those markets, but they gouge us. And he says it's the problems of the foreign countries that regulate the companies from doing it to their population. I just want to say this is the right-wing populism vision, folks. Here.
Interesting to note that countries apparently have done price controls and they still get the drugs in those countries.
Well,
odd.
Okay, I'm setting up a commission to look at it and to look at it strongly. And we'll see what happens after that.
Stern look.
And Matt Stoller pointed this out on social media, but that the drug companies reacted very positively, or like the stock market of those of pharmaceuticals, Pfizer and Merck went up in response to this.
Because we can gouge Europe now, who cares about the price in America?
Exactly.
Right.
Well, wait a second. Let's hear a little more of Trump.
Yeah, maybe he thought this through.
I'll tell you a story. A friend of mine who's a businessman, very, very, very top guy. Most of you would have heard of him. A highly neurotic, brilliant businessman, seriously overweight, and he takes the fat shot drug. And
pause it for 1 second. Now, it hadn't occurred to me until listening back on this time, but it's possible he's talking about himself.
Highly neurotic.
I'm saying this story for a friend.
John Barron, you could call him.
Highly neurotic, afraid of germs, taking the fat shot.
Brilliant, obviously. It's Trump. He's talking about himself. That's him.
And he takes the fat shot drug. And he called me up and he said, President, he calls me, he used to call me Donald, now he calls me President, so that's nice respect. But he's a rough guy, smart guy.
Rough guy.
Very successful, very rich. I wouldn't even know how we would know this, but because he's got comments. Said, President, could I ask you a question? What? I'm in London, and I just paid for this damn fat drug I take. I said, it's not working. He said, I just paid $88. And in New York, I pay $1,300. What the hell is going on? I mean, I'll tell you a story.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. But I guess it's helpful to have a billionaire, actually pay attention to how much they're paying on their drugs. But we know the answer. And we know what Trump's answer is going to be. Well, I'll tell you, next time you go to London, it's going to cost closer to $1,200.
I'm still flummoxed as to who he could possibly be talking about. Which billionaire who's highly neurotic and brilliant and seriously overweight is also looking at the price of their Ozempic shot on a daily basis? Like a $1,300 shot versus an $80 one is nothing to this billionaire
highly neurotic.
In London.
Maybe that's
why he notices little things like the $1,000 difference. Bernie Sanders has been on this thing with Ozempic for a while now. It should be produced for less. It does work. Did he say it doesn't work in that, or was
he said that for this guy it doesn't work, but that it's more expensive over there? It's quite unclear. But Ozempic does have a lot of health benefits we're seeing now, and it can be that lower if you are prescribed it, if you meet specific criteria. But if you're not prescribed it does cost that amount, or if you don't have insurance.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, a society that was conducive to active lifestyles would be better. But as far as I can tell, it seems like these things work pretty significantly.
now.
Right.
Apparently, RFK Jr. got a different message about what this is going to mean in terms of drug prices. I think in many respects, people are getting the wrong message of what this means with drug prices. There's no authority. He doesn't seem to be issuing price controls. All he's saying is that, I want more parity between what you're paying, what we're paying here and in Europe. And
in the opposite direction.
Maybe just raise the prices in Europe. But here is RFK Jr. talking about how moved he was when he heard about this.
Robert Reich, who are just saying that President Trump is on this side of the oligarchs. There has never been a president more willing to stand up to the oligarchs than President Donald Trump. And I'm very, very proud of you, Mr. President, for your...
He just cited an oligarch with his Ozempic thing about a guy who travels across the Atlantic to get Ozempic. But anyway.
I mean, there is arguably a problem that your only feedback you're getting about the cost of prescription drugs, you have to rely on whether one of your billionaire friends tells you, right? I guess we're all lucky that Donald Trump has one neurotic billionaire friend who does check the price of some things. But outside of that,
I know. Right. Well, that's when he's getting advice about how the little 11-year-old baby girl can have $2 instead of $50.
Right.
That's that was the wrong billionaire spoke to him on that day.
Which is the billionaire that has the toilet that can't flush?
courage, I'll say, because I don't want to be crude, your intestinal fortitude, your stiff spine, and your willingness to stand up for the American people. We have 4.2% of the world's population. Our country represents 75% of the revenues for pharmaceutical companies. We spend in our country $1,126 per capita on drugs. In Britain, they spend about $240. They spend 1/5 of what we do. And this is true across Europe. And the drug companies, Europeans, if you ask them, it made no sense what they were saying. Well, America has to pay for this innovation or it's not going to happen. What President Trump is saying to our European partners is you've got to raise the amount that you're paying for those drugs and pay for your share of the innovation. that the United States is no longer subsidizing that.
So, Posit, to be
Europeans
clear,
raise
now it is conceivable that after raising prices on the Europeans, the drug companies will say, we'll voluntarily now drop the prices in the United States, marginally. We should also say that under the Biden administration, every year there was 10 drugs that are paid for by Medicare that had to be negotiated. So, like, the writing was on the wall. And to the extent that they're going to drop any prices, they may or may not, they're not obligated to, they're definitely going to get a windfall, it appears, from Europe. But the idea that he's being praised in this way, Bobby Kennedy explicitly came out against the single-payer health insurance. Now, the UK, who he's comparing it to, they have not just a single-payer health insurance, they have government-provided health care. For us just to go to government-provided health insurance, spending what we have for Medicare and Medicaid, there would be a lot of savings in terms of drugs. There would be a lot of savings in terms of medical procedures, because we would also be a lot smarter as to know when things are indicated, and we'd be able to buy in bulk. None of that is being touched upon here. All it is forcing Europeans to pay higher drug prices at the risk of forcing Americans to pay for higher European goods.
Yeah, and you can just trust the pharma companies to make sure those savings are passed along to America. This is how
I talk to them. They'll be fine.
This is how they did the anti-war thing too. We're anti-war, and what we mean by that is telling the Europeans to spend more on war.
Yeah, right. It's just about his rivalry with Europe or something. But also, even if Donald Trump had this executive order that said we want this more substantive, right? We want Medicare to be able to negotiate for all drugs, as opposed to just the more narrowly tailored one that Biden addressed, it still wouldn't have any teeth and would be challenged and overturned in the courts, because Biden had to do that through the Inflation Reduction Act. And that's what we're going to see in 2026, that expansion. But Trump will probably take credit for it. But this is both like the reverse, is like we need our drug companies to be ripping off the Europeans more. And also, I know that this isn't even going to take any effect. I'm just going to gesture at it. And you have this dude pretending this guy's anti-oligarchy, Donald Trump, who
you don't get it.
His attorney general was a lobbyist for the Qatari government. And it's now in the cards that he might be getting a $500 million plane from Qatar.
You don't get it. It's called a race to the bottom. And we're going to win.
We are going to win. That's one race we'll win.
They're the price of their drugs by just 20%. That is $10 trillion that can be spent on innovation, and the health of all people all across the globe is going to increase.
Wait, pause. Wait a second. So wait. Oh, okay. Oh, now I get it. He's not even saying, he doesn't, you notice even Kennedy's like avoiding, like saying it's going to mean lesser drugs for us.
Yeah.
He's saying they're going to take those $10 trillion and they're not going to put it in their profits. They're going to use it on innovation.
Oh, sure they are.
No.
I should trust them?
We know they're going to do the right thing.
Oh, Bobby Kennedy's telling us we should trust Big Pharma to do the right thing.
It's just,
right?
This is just unbelievable.
RFK Jr. says trust Big Pharma to do the right thing.
This is actually the way I got the president to sign off on outlawing the measles vaccine. That's what the agreement I made with him was. I would come up and really praise what he's doing here if he outlaws the measles vaccine.
You know where we could find a bunch of money for innovation is the family bank accounts of Trumps and Kennedys and put it towards Medicare for all.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Products. So I'm just so grateful to be here today. I never thought that this would happen in my lifetime. I have a couple of kids who are Democrats, are big Bernie Sanders fans, and when I told them that this was going to happen, they had tears in their eyes, because they thought this is never going to happen in our lifetime, and we finally have a president who's willing to stand up for the American people. Thank you, and Dr. Oz.
Oh my God, Dr. Oz. I cannot wait to go home and tell my kids that Europeans are finally going to be paying more for prescription drugs. The look on my children's faces when I tell them that for French people, they're going to have to pay a lot more for their insulin. The just absolute joy that is going to be on their little cherub faces. And I just, I can't even think about it without breaking out in tears myself. Oh, kids, wait till you see how much Europeans are going to have to pay. You're going to feel so much better about yourselves.
Freedom Pharma.
Oh my gosh, it's going to be wonderful.
Bernie Sanders had a statement about this executive
Let's pop it
order.
up.
Let's pop it up just in case, any of RFK Jr.'s kids are listening.
I look, I'm going to bet that didn't happen.
Really? Because the tears in her eyes thing, it is interesting. It's just a note I had because Trump's always saying that tears in their eyes, they come to me. It's like Bobby's picking up on all of his weird ticks too.
I wonder how hard they're going to cry when they read Sanders' statement on it.
They were probably just crying because their dad wouldn't stop tanning his testicles in front of them.
I agree with President
Dad,
Trump.
put on your clothes.
God.
Dad, what kind of animal carcass is in the trunk?
Yeah, it's been smelling for
I
days.
agree with President Trump. It's an outrage that American people pay by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. It's beyond unacceptable that we pay in some cases 10 times more for the same exact prescription drugs that people in other major countries. But let's be clear, the problem is not that the price of prescription drugs is too low in Europe and Canada. The problem is that extraordinarily greedy pharmaceutical industry made over $100 billion in profits last year by ripping off the American people. Further, as Trump well knows, his executive order will be thrown out by the courts. If Trump is serious about making real change, rather than just issuing a press release, he will support legislation I will soon be introducing to make sure we pay no more for prescription drugs than people in other major countries. If Republicans and Democrats can come together on this legislation, we can get it passed in a few weeks. Unlikely that that's going to happen. But again, the idea that companies that make hundreds of billions of dollars in profits are going to take their newfound windfall from Europe and put it towards innovation as defined by like just pure, we're going to go out, we're going to do a moonshot, and it's not going to be in any way a function of how much money we think we can make on this or that.
But that's the real
They're going
critique.
to make ivermectin 2.
Yeah, that's the sequel. That's the critique of pharma that makes sense. Like, that's the problem, is they don't spend money on research and development because they can just make a bunch more money on pumping out, other drugs, whether it's erectile dysfunction medication or Ozempic, which does have health benefits for people that need to lose weight and maybe have, high cholesterol or something like that. But that's the problem, is that when you don't make them, they're not going to do it. And that was part of the big problem with Operation Warp Speed too, is that we shot a cannon of money at Big Pharma, and they actually were very effective in terms of the vaccines that they developed. But that just went to them and not to us, even though it was taxpayer money that funded that research and development. So if we wanted to make America healthier, we would have a more disciplinary relationship with Big Pharma, which would require research and development if they wanted government funds, and then we also own some sort of generic version of that drug so that people can access it everywhere. But that's the threat.
Did you not hear that my kids cried when they heard the announcement that the Europeans would be paying more for prescription drugs?
Their eyes were just tearing up because of all of the
That's what they
meat.
wanted for Christmas.
The raw
I told them
rancid meat.
we're gonna have those Europeans. They're not gonna be walking around like they own the whole planet. They're going to pay more.
Good point.
If any industry needs the government to do this much for them, then they should be nationalized.
Yeah.
We already, the VA already makes some generics. And Elizabeth Warren had a proposal about the U.S. government getting more in the business of generics. The idea that we can't produce these drugs is absurd.
Oh, yeah.
We can.
Right. And that's what I saw that this is a small aside, but Bill Gates was doing some media tour over the weekend criticizing Elon Musk for the USAID cuts and how many children are going to die and get infected with HIV in Africa as a result of that, which is absolutely true. But let's not, Bill Gates, pretend like you're the hero in this situation, because in many ways, so much of intellectual property around medicine and vaccines is because of his push to make those things private instead of public domain, including with COVID, which would have saved millions of lives potentially if some of these countries were able to produce generic versions of the mRNA vaccine, among others.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.